How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Theme Park Shark Podcast. We're doing Shark Stop today with Alicia Stella, and it is kind of I don't want to say an emergency one because we waited a few days, but it is a big one because we just got news out of the Universal Orlando Resort that Poseidon's Fury is going to be officially closing for good. This is it. This is the official last run of it. It's going to run all the way until, I believe it's May 9th off the top of my head. That's the last day. Is that correct, Alicia?
Yeah, that'll be the last day. It'll be open.
Yes, the last one will be open. It'll be May 9th. And what were you surprised by this news, or were you expecting this, or how did this come to you at this point in time, like right now?
It's weird to be both surprised and not surprised by an announcement like this. Like, it's such a long time coming, but at the same time, it came out of nowhere. I expected it back in 2020, 2021, because they closed it temporarily, like to save on money during pandemic stuff. And then it got this big refurbishment for like 6 months and it reopened. And I was like, oh, I guess it's got a few more years in it. And a year later, here it is closing. So it is kind of out of nowhere, but also to be expected.
I think we just learned too, like, and I'm glad you mentioned the refurbishment because we mentioned that as well on our Twitter account yesterday. Like, this just taught us that a refurbishment doesn't really mean anything anymore in terms of like the longevity of an attraction.
A year ago, they repainted all of Fievel's Playland at Kids Zone at Universal Studios Florida. And we're like, well, they repainted the entire thing and it took them months. There's no way they're going to close it. Boom, demolished, gone. So you can't take any of that as evidence.
No, and I think that's something that a lot of us have always tried to take as evidence. I mean, if you look on Twitter or forums or whatever it is, where people kind of speculate and try to guess the future of these parks, the second something goes under refurbishment, it seems like everyone kind of throws their hands up and says, oh, that's safe for at least a few more years, but not necessarily true anymore.
Yeah. Which has me concerned for Men in Black because like they started redoing and refurbing the ride vehicles and the guns and the new like safety message video. And I'm like, oh, I guess it's safe for a few more years, but I don't know what to believe anymore.
I'm not worried about this being gone. But by the way, we got a new video in our queue here at Forbidden Journey as well. So it seems like they just did some queue work lately across the board.
Oh, nice. I think it comes down to operations not knowing what's going on, like in big executive decisions. Like maybe something got greenlit and that like supersedes everything. It's like, oh, well, we're finally doing this. So, but like the other hand doesn't know what this hand is doing. They're just operating the theme parks as normal.
Yeah. That's such a crazy thing. And I think that's something that a lot of us are going to have to take just as information going forward. Like, just because we now know about these refurbishments doesn't mean something is good for the long haul. And just like you said, I hope that doesn't mean anything for Men in Black. Like, I think the both of us want Men in Black there for at least a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm sorry for even bringing it up. Now I don't want to worry about it.
Hopefully we don't go to the podcast curse or the podcast future predictions on that one. But I mean, staying at Lost Continent and IOA, like this is crazy to me. I already read your article, by the way, which I thought was fantastic and kind of went over the
thank you.
The possibilities of what's going to happen there. But at the end of the day, this still did kind of come as it came out of nowhere. And I think that the both of us are still at a point where we're kind of wondering like what really it can be. Like, obviously we have options and we have things we've discussed over the last 2, 3, 4 years, but there's no solidified answer here yet, is there?
No. Everyone will say Zelda's coming, but like I think there's more to this decision than we think or we know about. And like, didn't you just post on social media that they redid the projectors in 4K like 2 months ago? Yeah. So like this attraction, it also received some AC work a month ago. So I feel like they've been like not only keeping it up, but like trying to work on things behind the scenes. There's been long-standing rumors that it's had issues either with plumbing or AC or both that have been so bad that it's like a money pit maybe is one way to define it. But like it's a problem that's so big that every time they try to fix it, it seems to get worse. So I wonder if maybe they have a plan. They know they're going to replace this ride or this area eventually, and they're like, let's just give up on trying to like, is it worth it to like spend all this money just to have it for another year or two?
Jake and I had a discussion. We thought it was kind of odd timing as well, going into, no pun intended, the heat of the summer. And now you're going to take away, this, which is a nice, entertainment offering, the Lagoon show over at Universal Studios Florida, and then also the Hogwarts nighttime show. So what where does that leave entertainment at this point? I mean, I know Bourne's there, but like that, it feels like that's what's there for the summer. Am I missing something?
We have a lot of streetmosphere. I mean, it's not
Sure.
to be like, I'm shocked. There's always like 5 different rotating shows in the streets of New York at Universal Studios Florida. And they added one not that long ago, and they kept all the other ones. It used to be they would only have like 1 or 2 besides Blues Brothers, but there's like 5 now rotating. So it's not like there's cuts to entertainment so much as I think they're preparing for a really busy season when Epic Universe opens. So we're in a building time where this show needs to get refurbed now so that it's good to go for years after Epic Universe. This show needs to get improvements. So they're doing, like, they already started working on the new Lagoon show by making repairs to the fountains. They've been, the lagoon level's been lowered, and they're working on that as of this week. So they're clearly making improvements actively. And unfortunately, we have to live with a lot of work walls around both parks, and a lot of work being done because they're just, I think it's like what Disneyland had to do, widening pathways and preparing ahead of Galaxy's Edge opening. We're having this period where they redid all of the food stands at Universal Studios Florida, and they look amazing. They have new menus. It just feels like they're making everything stronger for the resort when Epic Universe opens, as if they're expecting an influx of guests maybe for a few years.
I would say they definitely are, and it makes a lot of sense to try to like fine tune and get everything ready for that crowd as well. So if we're right about at the 2-year mark right now, it does make sense to begin that preparation and planning around the current resort parks as well to get that going.
Right. So you're seeing a lot of concrete work this year to get the pathways all ready. It's essentially everything they can do to make sure that there's not areas closed off with work walls when it comes time, and that they have as much capacity in the parks as they can. So unfortunately, we're in like a growing period right now. I think next year will be great, and starting this summer, because we have a lot more kid-friendly offerings coming to the Universal Studios Florida. So it definitely feels like they're trying to round out everything as best they can. But as far as Poseidon's Fury, that's a question mark. I'm not sure if Lost Continent or Poseidon's Fury is going to be replaced. I'm not sure we're going to see it until after Epic Universe. So this is going to be probably a dead zone for quite a while, although it kind of already is. There's not much left of Lost Continent. Poseidon's Fury was the last remaining attraction in this area. So we have a Mystic Fountain and Mythos to hold us over now. And that's it. So, some people think maybe they're just going to put in retrofit in a new walkthrough type attraction into the existing building, and that would be a quicker turnaround. But even still, I don't foresee anything coming and opening before Epic Universe. And I worry that this might sit. I just mentioned it the other day. The Sinbad show closed 2018 and still remains dormant. They didn't even take down anything on the stage. So, I worry that this might become the Lost Continent has been completely lost, is what I'm saying.
Your amphitheaters and stages there haven't had a nice historical last decade.
At least Fear Factor Live gets used for Halloween Horror Nights. At least we have that.
That is very true. And you still have Animal Actors running as well. So at least something.
Well, we did until you just said that. You reminded them. Right. Now it's not long for this world.
I hope I didn't do that. So this video, and what I mean by this video is I've been looking for a video for quite some time. I've been nerding out over the Super Mario Brothers movie because it was such a box office success over, its opening 5-6 day run, and it's going to continue to be that way, it looks like, for the next few weeks here. So I've been nerding out on YouTube looking for a video of just somebody who wants to talk about that impact on the parks. And it doesn't seem like that's really happened. A lot of the videos that I'm finding are people just talking about the movie itself, people interviewing cast members from that movie. And I want to talk about the implications of what that means on the park. And even though we don't have confirmation just yet that it is Lost Continent and doing something with a Nintendo property at Lost Continent, it seems really hard to ignore, and you can tell me if you agree with this, that this movie just goes on an incredible 5-6 day run. It breaks basically every animated box office record there is. And all of a sudden we get an announcement that, hey, guys, by the way, we're going to close Poseidon's. to me, that seems very one-to-one, and it seems like, okay, we saw the success, we got our green light, let's go ahead and move forward and let's get Zelda going.
Right.
But you can tell me if that's how it struck for you as well. I mean, the timing is, you like for some of these things, like yes, the timing is very like random and like sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense, but this one feels almost one-to-one.
If that is the case, and it certainly looks like it might be the case, I'd say it's not just the Mario Brothers movie and the success and the possibility of Illumination, a Universal Comcast company, making infinity more Nintendo movies for the rest of time. It might also have to do with Super Nintendo World opening in Hollywood and power-up bands flying off the shelves and the park selling out in ways that it doesn't usually. It might be a combination of both of those things, because these are both like combinations of projects that Nintendo is working with the same company. They're all branches of Comcast, and whether it's the theme parks or the Illumination movie studio. So Nintendo is probably sitting there and talking to Universal and be like, hey, this movie's doing really well. And the land just did really well. Maybe it's time we like blow the dust off of those plans we have laying around for that Zelda thing and maybe put that into motion. Because back in 2020, when I reported on Zelda plans possibly being written up for replacing the Lost Continent, the thing I always ended the videos with was saying Universal and Nintendo want to see how the initial Super Nintendo World lands do before greenlighting and putting more capital into more Nintendo-based lands. Like they were worried, that this isn't going to recoup its costs, that it's not like Harry Potter hit the ground running and they immediately greenlit the next land, but it was also contractually obligated to make more rides based on the movies. And there's been rumors that there's contractual obligations, but we haven't seen the contract yet, to add more Nintendo properties. It's just that they didn't want to do it until they recoup some of the costs to build the initial ones. So we may just be at that time period, movie or not, that the lands, now that it opened in a domestic park, is making back the money. Like the power-up bands could be the Butterbeer. And Butterbeer paid off that first Hogsmeade land like within a year and paid for Diagon Alley to be built. Maybe power-up bands are doing that right now, and it's paying for Zelda to be developed. So even if they don't have solidified plans, it's probably true that they just greenlit something Nintendo to replace Lost Continent. I feel like that has to be true. I feel like that has to be
true as well. And speaking of Butterbeer, I've always found it kind of odd because I've equated power-up bands to wands, right? And I mean, if we've looked at big lands, there's always been that drink, whether it's Galaxy's Edge and Blue Milk and, the Wizarding World and Butterbeer. So I've always wondered, where is Nintendo's drink? We have our little stand outside, but I don't consider that that's not our land.
I honestly think everyone bought Butterbeer, but not everyone buys a wand. How many people are buying those power-up bands?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a better point.
So
yeah,
I think that is your drink. Drink it in.
Yeah, got it. No, yeah, that feels right. I've been following your coverage of Lost Continent for quite some time now, and I've seen a few different iterations of attractions that you've said could be presenting itself in this land, all the way from a boat ride to a show that looked like it had a dynamic sort of seating element. If you had to guess at this point, where things are at, the landscape of where that land is, where the park is, was that an either or scenario? How would that have broken out, and where are you leaning right now?
The patent and concept art for the puzzle theater, which was the dynamic seating thing that happens and the seats move around the characters in the center of the room, was developed as a pitch to get the deal with Nintendo. It wasn't actually approved to be built anywhere. And that was back when it was a Kid Zone and Japan concept that mishmashed all the Nintendo properties into one land. And it was a very small concept for Zelda. It's a very tiny temple in the back of the land, and it has a tiny show with tiny capacity. And I think that it was split off and they focused in on the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario Kart, and Donkey Kong, so they could branch out and do other Nintendo properties as fully fleshed out lands, and Zelda was maybe one of those. Pokemon could be another one that was going to have a training academy in that pitch concept, and they're like, well, this deserves its own land, so let's just branch that out too. And if they did just greenlight a Zelda concept, I'll tell you a real quick rundown of the history of the rumors for a Zelda ride for Lost Continent. Originally, one of the concepts, and it's like blue sky phase, you want to dream big. It was a boat ride that would go through an indoor dark boat ride that would go through scenes from various like elements and places that you've seen in the Legend of Zelda games. But halfway through, essentially it would turn into a flying ET type ride. So like something would pick up the boat and then you'd get to soar through the air and see like smaller versions and screen-based versions of Hyrule, like Kingdom off in the distance, and like fly between cliff faces and stuff. And it was a very grand concept. And I did a video on it because it's like one of the best patents I've ever read. But reality is, it was just about that time when Universal was canceling anything with suspended ride systems. They canceled the suspended ride system, gyrosphere ride for Universal Studios Beijing for Jurassic World, and that got turned into a Spider-Man scoop ride vehicle. They canceled the suspended ride system, elevator system for Ministry of Magic at Epic Universe, and that became a scoop ride vehicle system. And they never greenlit this concept. They never moved past the patent phase for this concept for Zelda. However, they did go into the next phase for concept art for a boat ride, indoor boat ride on its own. So there is concept art floating around out there for a boat ride that takes place through the Legend of Zelda. And then it kind of became radio silence as the pandemic came and we stopped talking about possibilities like this because they really needed to play wait and see if the tourism rebounded, see how Super Nintendo World reacted. And this is where things get a little murky, but there are also rumors that they were just going to retrofit Poseidon's Fury's existing structure and scene by scene layout into a Zelda attraction. Like redo the facade, but keep everything intact and just retrofit in a new show. So honestly, that's the last rumor I've heard, and that's where we left off. If that was the case and you're going to redo the entire Lost Continent, I could see the Sinbad Theater getting a retrofit for a show. I could see the Poseidon's Fury getting a retrofit for a walkthrough attraction, and Mythos getting a facelift, literally, to become a restaurant, and that land becoming the Legend of Zelda without spending a lot of money. And I worry that's where we are, when I would much rather we tear it all down and start over. I want an indoor boat ride. I think it's something seriously lacking at Universal Orlando Resort. Even if it's not the hybrid flying boat ride, I still think an indoor boat ride is a much grander way to tell stories than an interactive walkthrough experience. But that's where we are. I don't know what, if anything, has been greenlit. I just know that they closed this thing and they were having issues with the building.
It would be really interesting, though. I mean, as much as I would love to see a boat ride, especially one that takes off midway through and just flies, I would be kind of curious to see what does an interactive walkthrough attraction look like from Universal in this day and age. Assuming, technology's come a little bit further than where it was with Poseidon's, I'd be curious to see what that looks like. But in terms of a retrofit, this is a conversation that Jake and I actually also had. Everything within Lost Continent, like, it feels like a similar kind of vibe, right? As like Zelda, like, it seems like there's certain things that you could probably even leave and like people I don't think would question it too much just based on the like pure aesthetic of it all. But so when it comes to a retrofit, like, let's say like all right, so the cool thing about Poseidon's Fury is it has a very grand facade, right? Like, the facade's massive. If you like just fixed it up and figured out a way to make it more Zelda-y, like, I think like that's cool. But at what point do fans begin to feel a little gypped? Like, hey, I wanted like something from the ground up, like a brand new Zelda thing. Like, do you think those fans will still be pleased in the sense of like I don't know what to even call it. I guess would you just call it a retheme? Like, I don't even know like what you would call it in that sense, but will they feel ripped off in the sense of what they're getting because it's just not a ground up attraction, something that's just kind of being like rethemed and stuck in a current building?
I mean, yeah, they will. I think that's my point, is that I worry that the plans over the last few years, I mean, I worry in general that Universal Orlando and Universal like parks and what is it called now? Destinations and experiences. Sorry. Universal Destinations and Experiences. I worry that its eyes are too big for its stomach, and it's got its eyes set on creating mini theme parks around the country, maybe the world. It's got a new theme park that's being built here. It's trying to add new rides every year in Hollywood. It's trying to add new attractions here at the old parks at Universal Orlando. And I'm worried that the budgets are going to be spread too thin. And that just because you say, hey, we're greenlighting a Zelda thing, and then you just retrofit into existing structures, like you're going to disappoint everyone, because you're going to just say, hey, we're building Zelda, and everyone's going to, like, your mind is going to go like crazy trying to think of 1,000 different ways that you could bring that to life. And none of them are going to be turn what's left of the small lost continent into the exact same thing with Zelda facelift. So, and it's possible to completely strip it down to its studs and retheme it and make it feel fresh and look completely different. And that's what they did when Hogsmeade came in. Like, the Enchanted Oak Tavern became the Three Broomsticks, and it feels completely different, even though it's exactly the same. And like Dragon Challenge, while was a minimal retheme, now that we have Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, they really did strip that down to its studs and they took the brickwork off to put new brickwork on, and it really feels different. So it's entirely possible that even using the existing structures, it could feel like Zelda. I just am not sure that it's a grand enough attraction for such a property, and that people will be inevitably disappointed when you see, even if it's a great facade, just like it is now for Poseidon. If like that, no offense to Poseidon's Fury, but it's writing checks that the attraction can't cash. Like, I want an exciting adventure in a ride vehicle inside that building. And, once you know what it is, it's pretty cool. But if you see a giant, amazing, if it, like, they were to put Hyrule, like, castle, like, force perspective on it and, like, make it look like this grand thing, and then you go inside and it's a walking tour, people are going to be disappointed.
I think you and I are going to go back and forth on that, though, because I always get excited about Universal walking tours just because, like, that's it. Like, that's the one. So I've always thought that was a really cool and, like, unique attraction for them to have. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, could it end up being in an expansion plot or something at Epic Universe one day? Could there be a walking tour type attraction? Maybe, but Poseidon's Fury has always kind of like fit the bill for that. So if they did a new one for Zelda, a new walking tour, like, I personally wouldn't mind it. But then again, like, I'm also with you. Like, if they did like a really cool boat ride,
Poseidon's Fury was perfect as a like C or D attraction, C or D ticket attraction in a land that also had dueling dragons. Sinbad, The Eighth Voyage of Sinbad, Poseidon's Fury, and like the whole Merlinwood section that got lost. When you add it all together, even the flying unicorn and the theming of it, it was a full, complete land. As we lost the top half, we lost the e-ticket. If you were to open a new land for Zelda without an e-ticket, you're opening half of Zelda.
I'm with you on that. I'm also immediately thinking about attractions in the past that have kind of just been a shoe-in type of or a shoehorn type attraction. I'm thinking something like Simpsons, and I'm even thinking something like Despicable Me, where they basically took like essentially the exact same ride systems and layout and pretty much everything that was there previous and just did it again. I don't know if that's going to fly in today's day and age with Universal, especially with a Nintendo.
I mean,
property.
It works for something like Frozen in Epcot. Like that I think that was a successful redo, because it would have, like, it's something on the scale of a Fantasyland style dark ride, and they use the ride system to its advantage, and it feels even grander than a classic, dark ride Fantasyland. And it's being cloned all around the world. Even Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem was cloned all around the world, although it uses Back to the Future in some locations. I think, like, for me, if you're going to do something that is like half the size of a land at the rest of the park, it should be like Skull Island Reign of Kong. It should all be about one giant ride. And if they were going to do this right, you retheme Mythos, you retheme the marketplace.
Whoa. Retheme or
well, I mean, it's still Mythos. Okay. It's just you put the Great Deco tree in front.
Are you changing the food though? That's what I want to know. Are you? Okay.
No. Right. The food is exactly the same. For some reason, the Kingdom of Hyrule eats exactly the same food as the Greek gods.
We could change some names, right?
Like it's Link's. It's Link's Pad Thai. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You completely demolish Poseidon's Fury and the Sinbad show, and you build an e-ticket. something worthy of the name Zelda. And anything short of that, and you're going to disappoint the fans. But that's this is my opinion, but also it's what I worry is going to happen.
Hey, if we just want to throw a monkey wrench in all of this, does it have to be Zelda? Like,
it probably is Zelda.
Yeah.
Like one of the earlier plans to replace this land before they got the Nintendo deal was How to Train Your Dragon. And that also fits with the visual motif of the existing Lost Continent area. Mm-hmm. But that, of course, is going to Epic Universe. Another concept was Kung Fu Panda. That's going over to Kid Zone. Another concept was expanding Harry Potter and expanding Dr. Seuss and meeting in the middle. So like they have other ideas, but most of them, like they've already expanded Potter into a whole new theme park. They've already expanded into the other theme park. So I think that we're left with Zelda. Like that's all it's left.
I really hope this ends up being like Seeing Land in 2 years. Everyone can watch this podcast and be like, haha, you guys don't know anything. That'd be fun. Or I don't know if you've seen this yet. There's a new Illumination movie on the way called Migration. So this could be a migration. I'm just gonna ignore that and say that it needs to be Animal Crossing. And I keep saying this, and I would say this on every podcast I'm ever on for the rest of forever, because Animal Crossing, it gives you an island and it's islands of adventure. It makes sense to me. I was actually waiting for you to say Animal Crossing when I said, does it have to be Zelda? I thought that's what you were gonna come back and say.
If you're gonna get it out of me, fine. I want Animal Crossing. So what? I never play Zelda games. I play Animal Crossing games. This is who I am. And you know what? They're gonna sell way more interactive things like power-up bands in an Animal Crossing land than they will with Zelda.
That. And I also think it's too bad that we never got like the mishmash, like here's a little bit of everything style land that would have gone or was kind of like rumored to go at Kid Zone. Like it still would be like pretty cool if we got at least somewhere, you know, at some park, like a little mishmash of properties. So we can see more things.
That's also possible. It's also possible that they redo Poseidon's Fury and Mythos as Zelda, and then the back half of the land gets redone as like Kirby's Fun Land or something. Like it's entirely possible we do get a 2-for-1. Oh yeah, I mean like the Sinbad and the Sinbad Bazaar is enough room for a half mini land, and Poseidon's Fury, because they already are split into 2 lands. Like without Merlinwood, we have Sinbad's Bazaar and the Lost City. So they're already 2 separate entities as it is. So it wouldn't be hard to put a portal in between, a green warp pipe, if you will, in between the 2 and have 2 Nintendo properties back to back. The same way that Mushroom Kingdom and Mario Kart Yoshi has a Donkey Kong Country area in the back. So it's like we keep thinking Zelda, and maybe that explains why Zelda Retrofit is the latest rumor for Poseidon's Fury, and there is no rumor for Sinbad. Maybe that's a separate land.
That's right, guys. I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you guys want to catch more of Alicia Stella, she has the Theme Park Stop on YouTube. She has the Park Stop podcast as well. And she is Alicia Stella on Twitter. If you guys are looking for more from the Theme Park Shark, you can find our podcast on Apple and Spotify. We are at themeparkshark.com. And, of course, the Theme Park Shark on YouTube. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Shark Stop. As always, I appreciate you guys being here and for listening and or watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Have a great day. And we'll see you guys in the next one.